We're going local today. This brewery is 2 miles from my house. This is a beer from Spitting Feathers. It is called Definitive, Repetitive even, Strain Injury. But what's it going to be like? Keep on watching to find out. Welcome back to Rocker's Beer Review. Today we're going very local to a brewery that is literally 2 miles away from my house. In fact, it might even be less than 2 miles away. This is a brewery called Spitting Feathers. They're based in a village just outside Chester, which is where I live, called Watertown. And this is one of their beers called Repetitive Strain Injury. It's an IPA. Don't know really much about it. 5.6%. It says pale malts and cutting-edge hops combined to produce this Moorage IPA. So I have seen this one in the supermarket. I was gifted this by my brother-in-law at Christmas time, and I just thought about time I started drinking. You know, I know I talk about Polly's a lot on the channel, being my sort of local, but they're not really. They're 10 miles or so away. But this is very, very local. So Chester Brewery. And I just get the impression this is going to be a bit more the traditional sort of ale, opposed to, the sort of cloudy, hazy sort of juice bomb IPAs that I usually review on the channel. So it should be something a bit different. But let's crack it open, get it in a glass, and see what it's all about. Yeah, I mean, straight away you can see that it's a lot sort of darker. There's not really much of a haze on that. It's almost clear. You know, to me, this looks very much like a lager. We've got 1.5 very sort of soapy head on this. Yeah, I mean, it looks quite clean, quite crisp, quite a lot of carbonation, although it's quite slow moving, the carbonation. So let's see whether we get any aromas from this. I'm getting a lot of the malts. I'm getting the sort of aromas that you get with lager, really. I'm not really picking up anything fruity at all. Just very sort of malty. So let's see what it tastes like. Cheers, everyone. To me, if I hadn't have seen this, I would have said this tastes like a sort of lager. It's very much along the IPAs, like things like, I mean, I don't drink many of them on the channel, but things like Trooper IPA, for example, although it's better than Trooper IPA. There's a nice sort of malty sort of taste. It's very refreshing. It's got a real sort of sharp sort of taste to it. And then there's a real sort of dry, bitter finish. But it's one of those sort of beers that, although it's not the sort of beer that I drink much of, it's very good. You know, it's very refreshing. It's got a slightly more sort of flavour than your sort of normal lagers. You know, it's not. There's a lot more malts in this beer. It's not as carbonated. To me, this is like a traditional golden ale, and this is what it's about. I mean, I'm not sure what the hops are like in this, but I'd be really struggling to pick out things, whether it had things like Citra in it, for example. No, to me, this is very much like a lager or pilsner, with a little bit more malty taste to it. But it's not bad. But let's get some scores. Okay, the scores are in for Repetitive Strain Injury. This is by Spitting Feathers. It is an IPA coming at 5.6%. Much more traditional sort of ale, craft beer, but it's from my local brewery, so I think it's worth trying. And I'm not sure, I have seen this in supermarkets, whether that's just my local Chester supermarkets because it's local, but I don't know if it's available anywhere else. But you know, I'm sure you can go on their website. This is very reasonably priced as well. Obviously, I got it for free because it was a gift for Christmas. But the scores. So first things first, aroma. Well, always a little bit sort of, it's very sort of traditional in terms of its aroma. It's very sort of malty, almost smells like a sort of a little bit of a more malty sort of lager that you're not picking much in terms of fruit, aromas or really anything else. So it's okay, but it's for its style, I suppose, it's pleasant enough, but it doesn't really do that much, So I'm giving it 10 for aroma. Appearance wise, well, again, for an IPA, this looks very much like a lager or a golden ale. It's got very little head, it's very light, it's very it's clear. There's a slight haze, I suppose you could say, to it, but it's not like the sort of IPAs that we usually review on the channel. So appearance wise, yeah, I mean, if you're comparing this to lager, it looks pretty good, and that's pretty much more what it's like. So I'm giving it a 7 for appearance. Flavor wise, well, sometimes these beers can be a little bit too perfumey, can be a little bit flowery, can be a little bit strange aftertaste. For me, I'm getting a lot of malty flavour, very much like a sort of a real ale, in terms of flavour, or a sort of, a good quality sort of lager in terms of its sort of flavour profile. It's not as carbonated as lager, but it's not got a soft, creamy body. It's not got a real soft mouthfeel. It just, to me, tastes like a real traditional Old English IPA. The sort of things that, your dad probably would used to drink, So for me, flavour-wise, I suppose for the style, it's not bad. It's certainly very drinkable. It's refreshing, but there's not much to it. It's very traditional. There's no real fruitiness to it, but it's all right. For the style, I'm giving it 32 for flavour. Value for money. Well, I said I've seen these for under £2. This is a 500ml bottle of beer for under £2. I've seen it in supermarkets, so I think that's a really good value. So I got it for free, so that's even better value. But I'm giving it a 9 for value because if you like traditional IPAs, I think it's pretty good. And for me, my carbon footprint must be pretty low on this beer because it's only 2 miles away. So 9 for value. And my overall experience, well, this is the sort of beer I don't really drink much of. It's okay. It's drinkable. It's got more to it than a sort of your standard sort of supermarket or traditional sort of chain pub lager. But I couldn't drink more. There is a quite a dry bitterness on the back end there, really, and it's almost like getting towards that sort of. It's an ale. It's a sort of. It's not to the bitter, but it leans more towards bitter. As I say, when you think of IPAs that we review on the channel compared to this is called an IPA. They're worlds apart, really. You can't even call it an East Coast or a West Coast. It's to me, it's like a sort of more flavoursome lager. So, but I'm giving it 13 for overall because it's not bad. It's just not the sort of style that I would choose to drink on a regular basis. But I think if you like more traditional beers and you want something which is more craft than sort of your Feastons and and those sort of, but the big sort of macro breweries. So and I think that's worthy of that. So I'm giving it 13 for overall. Tighten the scores up, we get a 71. It's okay. It's not bad. I think it's more about if you like the style. If you like your IPAs to look like this, and you go to the pub and you drink sort of more traditional IPAs, and I think you'll like it. If you're like me and you follow the channel because you like to see all these sort of very fruity, big hop forward sort of beers, real sort of murky, cloudy, custard colour sort of IPAs, then this is quite different to that. In fact, it's very different to it. But, you've got to drink local and you've got to help support the local breweries. So it's worth giving it a try. I know they do lots of other ones. Maybe they do more ones that have got more of a fruitier flavour to it. But this to me is very much traditional ale in terms of its flavour profile. So 71 for repetitive strain injury. But what do you think? Ever had this? I know there's a few people who watch the channel that are sort of local in terms of in the Northwest. So maybe you've had it before. But, what about you guys? Have you, outside of the Northwest, have you ever had this? Have you seen this on the shelves? I think Morrison's is the supermarket I've seen it in. So I don't know whether Morrison's down south would have it at all, but let me know in the comments what you think. And until the next one, keep on rocking.